Buckle up. You are listening to Musicians and Beyond, where we bring you the backstage info on the life, the lyrics, and the long journeys of the music industry. Last week we had Jimmy McWilliams in studio, brought his guitar. This kid is the real deal. He was on The Voice. He played a couple of originals for us and a cover song, and what a great story he is. So if you haven't heard the episode, go back and listen to Musicians and Beyond with Jimmy McWilliams, and you won't be disappointed. What a great guy. He's got a great future ahead of him. And speaking of a great future, our next guest, number 93, this is episode 93, I can't believe it. We have Jass Bianchi in here, and she is a rapper, songwriter, singer, and she's going to tell us all about her business. And so anyone out there listening and watching that is a musician and wants to know how to do everything, and I mean everything, the correct way, this is your girl. Jass, welcome.
Thank you so much. That's quite an introduction.
We are honored to have you, and it's all true. Like, you got some awesome stuff that you can share, but I want to start like kind of from square one, like how you got into music at a young age and where you brought that from.
So when I was younger, I actually started DJing when I was really young, and my dad liked music, so he was pretty much always playing guitar, listening to the Beatles, vinyls, all of that stuff. So I've been a hustler since I was born, and I figured, why not do something with what I love? And I started DJing. And pretty much my dad was like, if we're going to do this, this better be a thing. So in high school, I started my own DJing business, and I was hiring some of the other kids in my school to operate some of the events for me. So that's kind of how I got into music and started on my musical journey. But I wasn't really when hip hop came along, it was because my cousin was in Boston, and I was living in Newtown in Sandy Hook, Connecticut at the time. So he introduced it to me. He was living in Boston and, listening to a lot of it. So when he came over, we started rapping and rhyming. And then I had a friend from Harlem who would hang out with us in the summertime too. So I was watching all the great classics like Wu-Tang, Jay-Z, Nas, and studying everything they were doing. And that's how I really started developing a love for rhyming, because it was all about poetry and supporting that with soundscapes,
Yeah, it's interesting. We were talking earlier, and you kind of broke the mold. You're not the stereotypical rapper, but
no,
you are.
Yeah, so it's weird. It's kind of like a lot of times people will just, when I say I do music, they'll kind of be like, oh, well, what do you do? And I'm like, hip hop, and they're like, you mean dancing? Right? So they automatically go into dancing, but and I'm so used to that. But yeah, I broke the mold. It feels weird because it's kind of like I lived a double life almost. I had lived in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, and then my family's originally from the Bronx, or not Bronx, from Brooklyn and Yonkers. So I was spending a lot of time there, and I was spending summers and stuff. So I kind of had this dual life going on, and that's really what shaped my perspective and the way that I rhyme, really.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's great that you broke the mold.
You have to do what you love at the end of the day. You have to do what you feel like you were put here to do. And that's what I've always felt like. I've always felt like this is what I've been put here to do. I don't know why. I don't know how, but it feels right.
So you started out as a little entrepreneur in high school, and now, you're an award-winning rapper. You get a lot of awards under your belt, which is really cool.
Thank you so much. Yeah. It feels weird. It's kind of like, when I was little, I always wanted to do all these big things with music, and it's weird how it worked out. It just worked out, and I look back, and now I sit back and I say to myself, wow, you actually did what you wanted to do as a kid, which is really cool, because as a kid, you're just trying to, you're thinking big, you're dreaming, and so I was able to do a lot of really what I wanted to do, and now I have other dreams as well, but it's a gift to be able to do what you really want to do in life.
What are your other dreams?
Yeah, so I have a lot of other dreams that are related to music and are not related to music. So Music wise, I'm still obviously I'm gonna be a rapper, songwriter, producer till I die. Pretty much, that's how I feel. If you're born into it, you're in it, right? But in terms of my aspirations that I'm trying to accomplish future wise, I would say I'm really trying to get women and female entrepreneurs in other underserved countries to really have more opportunities. So I've been kind of, that's very long term. That's been kind of something that I've always been slowly working at. And then currently now, I feel like this is my plug, right? Currently, right now, actually, I've been working for the past 7 years on developing a program because as an independent artist, I always felt like, I didn't fully understand how everything was supposed to be done sequentially or just overall how things were supposed to be done. So I just never felt grounded in that way. And so I took it upon myself to really just spend countless amounts of hours researching and developing a refined system of how to get fully set up as a pro music creator. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. Is I'm working with aspiring music creators who want to get fully set up as pro music creators, completely done for them in 90 days. And it's been a journey. It's been a lot of market research. It's been a lot of A/B testing things and such. So that's my current focus right now. And then my other focus that I have is I've been working on the music marketing side of things and generating fans for artists as little as 72 hours.
The average person, music listener, doesn't realize how much goes into getting a song on the radio or being a established musician.
Yeah.
There's legal aspects. There's songwriting aspects. There's registrations and
For sure.
copyrights and all this. And
Yep.
your program encapsulates all of that. And you're trying to give everyone an opportunity, which is, says so much about you as a person.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, it does. That's the thing, actually. I'm a music coach, so I had a lot of artists come to me, and they were spending a lot of money on doing a lot of these things, and also, too, they didn't even understand. There wasn't, again, no sequential process, no strategy behind what they were doing. So it was kind of like they were just spending all this money hoping that I would piece it together for them. But what they were not understanding is that I'm only going to be as good as what their vision is, right? If you don't have a good strategy, if you don't have a good vision, then you could pay whoever in the world and it's not going to work for you because there's no blueprint to win a Grammy. There's no blueprint to go on tour. There's no blueprint for any of that stuff, right? Well, there's there's ways to do stuff, but there's no exact blueprint that is a one-size-fits-all approach for all artists. So yeah, that's pretty much what I decided, instead of these artists coming to me and spending all of this money, hoping that something was going to happen, I was determined, to really refine the process and make a very sequential process so that it could be the most impactful for them. So that's this program. We basically focus on 3 steps, and that is plan, protect, and promote. And through that process, like you said, we help with understanding the vision, the mission statement. We build that out. We understand with setting goals that are attainable, so SMART goals. Then we start to help that individual, build out a business plan and develop the business. Do you want to be an LLC, an S Corp? Maybe it makes more sense for you just to be a DBA, right? Sole proprietor. So we work through that whole process. And then after we work through that process, we start to register and protect your music and your brand so that no one's taking your music. And I'll mention, well, I'm not going to mention the artist out of respect, right? But there's one artist that came to me and they said, how come this artist has my name, right? And they're going back and forth feuding on social media. And I'm like, at the end of the day, this is why it's so important. You build all your business up, and then if someone comes and takes your name, what happens then, right? So we pretty much get you protected from that standpoint, and then we move you through the proper money aggregation sites that you need to be registered with, and then we move forward after that to talk about fan generation and marketing. And that's the problem, is that most music artists come to me and they say, I want fan generation, I want music marketing, but they haven't done any of that other stuff. So they're basically wasting their time and money.
Right. And the first time I heard about you was way back when we had a guest of ours, Christine Elise. Watching her progress using your system is Amazing. So I
Thank
guess it
you.
works.
That means the world to me. It actually gives me goosebumps to know that I'm making an impact on others, because that's why I do what I do, really. I really want to change the way that independent artists look at the music business, instead of being like, so right-brained and thinking that they don't have the conduit or whatever it is, to start thinking left-brain. I want them to feel empowered and make them feel like, look, I can do this. I don't need to be a music lawyer, but I need to know the basics of what's going on, so I'm not signing bad deals and whatever have.
I think this is important stuff for anyone in the music industry. This is like, this information is huge. How do people find out about you,
Absolutely.
your system, and anything
Yeah.
that's involved with it?
For sure. So people can go to levelupyourmusiccareer.com. Level Up Music Coaching is my music coaching that, we basically mentor artists with that coaching program. And then also we have fangenerator.com. It's GENR8R.com. So we got a little clever there. But yeah, those are the two websites that you can go to. You can always Google search it as well and put my name, Jass Bianchi, because both of those are underneath the Jass brand.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't a small thing. You have a lot of people that work for you.
Yep.
And you've worked with over 300 artists
Yes.
to this point. So
Yes.
that's
Yes,
amazing.
I have. Yeah, over my career, and it's been amazing. I mean, each artist has totally different objectives, totally different skill sets, totally different artistry, right? The way they do their art. So I love it. I love talking to the artists. I love learning about what they do and really getting to the root of what it is that they need to address so they can move forward to get to that next level. You see what I did right there?
I like that. That was good. That was good. It's almost like you've done this before. So, I mean,
yeah.
you are in the rap hip hop world,
Yes.
but you work with all kinds of artists.
Yes, I do.
So
yeah.
is that difficult for you because
Not at all.
you are
No.
versed in one thing?
Yeah,
or
that's-
you like a little bit of everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I got passionate about that for a second, because the thing is, I love all different types of music. Even doing hip hop, I feel like I fuse in a bunch of different genres of all different types of genres of music, from world music to like Tony Bennett, right? So I love working with all different types of genres of artists, because I think that there are so many different nuances within those genres, right? So let me give you a direct example of this, right? If you do something like, let's say, Baroque music, right? We're niching down from classical to go even deeper. If you're doing something like that versus you doing pop music or hip hop music, then basically your audience that you are trying to corner as being some of your fans, and your success is going to be impacted by that, because the potential roof to the amount of people that you can be pitching to decreases, right?
Gotcha.
So I love working with all different genres, because in each genre, like I said, there's different pieces and components you need to. And then, of course, the commonality is that, let's say, is imposter syndrome, right? You have things like that everybody's dealing with. So for sure, I think that there are little nuances, and then there's also the commonalities between all of them.
And you do a lot of in-person coaching, but also you have online things. So anyone in the world can.
Yep.
can do it.
I've done coaching with artists in Ireland, UK, Canada, US, some from India, Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, so it really depends on what is your vision. I will say this though, I don't know, the one thing I don't know, and I always try to make sure I make a point of, is I'm not a music lawyer, so there are a lot of nuances when it comes to, operating in Africa, operating in India. It's a whole different how you need to get set up structurally. So for the program that we have right now, the 90-day program, we're really focused on artists in the US until we then develop, in other countries. But I always make a point to say that, because I don't know everything.
So you used to play around a lot. You used to be
Yes.
out and about and out, playing in front of live crowds.
Yes.
Do you miss that?
I do miss that a lot. This is funny that we're talking about this. I was on the phone with an artist and a fellow business person based out of Buffalo. And him and I were talking about doing art as a business versus doing art as something that just fulfills you. And for me personally, I feel like art obviously fulfills me, whether I do it as a business or not. I would always pursue music no matter what. That's just like, you know, it's kind of like the thing that's a pain in your ass. You know, you're always thinking to yourself, well, I'm not gonna, when you get frustrated, I'm not gonna do this anymore, but it just comes right back. So that's kind of how I feel, is that, you know, if I could do this if I could have my band bring them back together the way that I want to, that would be my ideal. Those are future plans that we're talking about right now.
Kind of sounds fun.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. We toured the East Coast. We did a lot of shows. There was actually a venue in Boston called Church, and so we performed over there before they shut down. And, you know, we've done Middle East and a bunch of other venues, performed out in Brooklyn. So yeah, you know, I miss it. I miss it a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like a fun life, but it was time to take a turn and
yeah, it was time to have some kids
and do this other thing. Yeah. So you have a family. You have a couple of kids.
I do.
Yeah, excellent. Are they into music at all, or?
Well, it's funny you say that. My daughter, she came home yesterday, and my wife had actually brought her into the house, right? And she's like, "Mama, I found this new song," right? And she's getting into that phase. She's only 4, but she's getting really into music. So I had to immediately drop everything I was doing from my marketing side, the agency side, and I had to just like start dancing with her, because if I don't, she's very spicy, right? So if I don't dance with her, if I'm not grooving with her, she's like, what's going on? So she was rocking out, and it was hilarious because as she's doing stuff, she goes, you sit there. This right here is the stage. I'm only on the stage, right?
Wow.
So I was like, okay. So, you know, so she was performing. And then my son, he loves drums. He's just obsessed with drums. And it's funny because most people will say, oh, you know, sing them something. He doesn't want me to sing him anything. He just wants me to beatbox to him. And he goes to sleep when I beatbox, you know, so it's
well,
funny.
it's great that they have musical bones in their body too.
Yeah.
You've worked with a lot of big names.
Yep.
The biggest.
Yep.
The Wiggles.
Yes.
The Wiggles. My kids used to watch the Wiggles. Those guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so you worked with the Wiggles. Snoop Dogg.
Yep.
Huge.
Yep.
Nora Jones.
Yep.
Wu-Tang. I
Yep.
mean, who else?
Yeah. Well, so at the time, I held 2 positions when I worked with those people. The first position was when I first got out of college, and I was doing an internship at Koch Records. Koch Records was pretty much a forward-thinking record label at the time. They were one of the innovators in terms of independent. So at the time, they had acquired a lot of artists, doing many different types of deals with them, not doing the traditional 360 deals per se. So I was working on the social media accounts for Snoop Dogg, the Wiggles, and Nora Jones, and it was fascinating because the messages I used to get we talk about genres, right?
Yeah, that's, I mean, what a opposite end of the spectrum.
Total opposite side of the spectrum, you know, like one of them was like pretty much like, should I call the cops, right? And then the other one was like, oh, you know, maybe I could show this to my little cousin, right? Or like Nora Jones was like, oh, cool, this is artistic and sassy response here, you know? So it was widely different, and it was fascinating, and it was really cool working for them because you'd see the artists come in, you'd talk to the artists on their way in and out, you'd have jokes with them. So I thought it was a really cool experience when I got out of college. And then when I worked as a marketing director at a radio syndication company, that's when I had worked with Alice Cooper, because we were working on his radio show. And this is actually really funny. So one time Alice we're at the board table, right, and everybody's being so serious, and then afterwards we're all taking photos of each other. So I said, you know, I'm going next to Alice, and I said to him, oh God, I'm like, do you have a good side? And he looks at me and he goes, no. Super down to earth, and he's a business guy. Like, that's what I try to tell artists too all the time. I'm like, your favorite artists, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them are business minded, right? Because they need to know how to do, you know, they need to know the ins and outs of their business. So they know if people are screwing them, if they know what the trajectory is, they need to know that. So
in the business, in the music business, a lot of people do get screwed because
they do.
it sounds good and whatever, and they just sign the dotted line and
they do
held
because
over.
they don't know they're not empowered. And by the way, that's not their fault. I mean, the music business was built on that left brain thinking, and they're right brain creators, most of them. And some of them have a mix of both, which is great, right? But, you know, that's not really their fault for being that way. But now we have the tools to really grab this and take a hold of it and be empowered.
I'll keep it positive.
Yes.
So all of the artists that you worked with,
Yes.
who was the coolest one to work with? Who was like a lot of fun and that you bonded with?
Oh.
The Blue Wiggle.
Okay. Yeah, right? The blue wiggle. Yeah, no, the green one. No, I would probably say this sounds crazy. So I don't want to say this in a way like I loved working with Mark McGrath and Alice Cooper and all those, because that was a really cool experience. It was in a board setting, and it was very corporate, and it was very like, you know, we're driven by metrics, things of that nature, right? So I loved it for that reason, because we had laughs. Even though it was so corporate, suit and tie, we still had laughs, and it was fun working with them. But for me, I feel like my passion lies with indie artists, right? With aspiring artists, because I think sometimes when you're not held to expectations and you're really setting the expectations yourself, that's when you could be really creative. So I love working with aspiring artists, and I really can't name one or two of them because I feel like a lot of them that I've worked with have inspired me just as much as they say, oh, Jass, you inspire me, you help me. I feel like they inspire me, you know, and each one of them has inspired me for a different reason, honestly.
The music industry, if they're down to earth and you help each other out, I mean, it's a win-win situation.
It is. It is. And, you know, it's like the music community is so strong. It's like once you find out that someone else loves music or does music, it's almost like, you know, when I walked in here and you're like, I feel like we know each other. That's what music is, you know.
Through your years of doing this, you've won a ton of awards. You won Women in Film Best Song.
Yep.
What's been your ultimate highlight as a musician?
I would say the most inspiring part of my journey is when I won an award out in LA. I have a song called One of the Boys, and it's really much about, you know, finding your identity within yourself, not even just like your sexual orientation or who you are, but also just like who you are as a person and what you believe in. And so that song really embodies that. And I won an award out in LA for a Woman in Film festival, and they had done a music part to the festival, and they actually flew me out to perform the song.
Fun.
Yes, it was a lot of fun, and I performed. It was great because like I performed literally in front of a room of like 400 to 500 amazing, powerful women who are in film, and it was so cool to see like other people that are making such a difference vibe to the music that I created. That was really cool. So
that is cool. You'd rather do that or be in the studio making music?
Music. The thing about me is I literally have, I want to say 100 notebooks full of rhymes. I mean, I have them stacked there. I keep saying to myself, oh, I'm going to go in there and digitize everything and but a part of me just likes the texture. I like the smell. I like, you know, remember, and it's weird, but I can remember back to when I used to rhyme or write that stuff down, you know, in that exact moment. And it takes me there. So, making music is my thing. Like I could make music, you know, I start sometimes when I'm going off and I'm like, okay, you know, I did my work for my clients. It's my time now. I'm going to put this, I'm like, oh, I'll do it for like an hour because I have to wake up early with the kids. Sometimes my wife comes downstairs and she's like, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. Right. And that's what music does, is that it takes you to that space, the state of flow, and brings you to a whole nother zone. Mm-hmm. So
I like asking musicians this because everyone has kind of a different answer, but all your rhymes, a lot of them rhyme with truck, by the way.
Do they really? That's
yours
hilarious. Do. What rhymes with truck, John?
You're going to have to listen to Jass's music to find out. But
A
So,
word my grandmother used quite frequently.
ooh, is that where you got it? You can blame her? Potty mouth
Always.
Nana?
Always.
Always blame the
You
grandmother.
know, she was the one who taught my first Italian word, fangul.
So where do you come up with your rhymes?
So I literally, it's weird. I can have a conversation with you and speak the English language, right? But then in my head, I can be literally rhyming whenever. It doesn't, and sometimes too, it will be weird because I'll talk to you and I'll flow in a cadence, or I'll say a rhyme and it will just happen, or maybe I'll make a pun. And that's kind of how my brain has been wired since I was little, ever since I started rhyming. So for me, like, the inspiration literally can come from wiper blades going back and forth if I hear a rhythm, or if I hear the rain coming down at a certain way, then I'll start talking and thinking about it in my head. And I also feel this, again, this is funny because one of my other clients, I was talking to him the other night, and he has been at it for a while, great guy. And he was saying to me, you know, it's almost like this spiritual thing that happens to you where it just hits you. And it's like, I got to write this down on paper, or I got to figure out how to get this out of me. And that's kind of how I experience things sometimes. It's kind of just this like spiritual moment, really.
So
yes,
interesting.
It's fascinating because I'm a Virgo, so sometimes I tend to be very like logical and everything, but there's no logic to that. It's just it's kind of transcendental, you know, a transcendental experience. So
Do you have a favorite song that you wrote?
oh wow, yes I do.
And what is that?
The song is called Pretty, and I took it down. So in this whole process, right, what we were talking about, I was offered a label offer, right, when I was in college. And basically the idea was lose weight and quit college, right? And I didn't want to do any of that because I love lasagna, and I'm not going to give that up for anyone. And I didn't want to take advantage of knowledge because knowledge is power. So at the time, basically, you know, I thought to myself, I got to get myself together and figure out this whole process. So I took this song down. But this song is basically about women, and it's basically about the idea that women have to be pretty, and we have to fit this kind of standard in order for us to be able to survive, really, to communicate, to survive, to be of value. And it's a very raunchy and blunt song. And I feel like if you know me as a person, when we talk, I might come across as very polished, very whatever, very...
In that you do.
Yeah.
I was a little surprised when I saw the video when the F-bombs are dropping left and right. I was like, wait a second here.
Not the same.
Not
It's
the
funny.
same?
I'll tell you a funny story after this quick. But basically, you know, so that song is very, very gritty. It's very at the core of who I am. And there's no what would you say? No filter. No. And so that it was really fun making it. And actually, the award that I won out in LA for one of the boys, the person who made the deciding factor, you know, she said to me, she goes, we gave you the award for this one because it's just so well done, but Pretty is my favorite. So I said, yeah, you know, that's my favorite too. It's not a radio hit, but it's something that you can really vibe to. So
Cool. Jass, what else do you want to, you know, talk about? Let's...
just the funny story I wanted to tell you. So, you know, I think it's interesting because of the dual life that, like you said, oftentimes people will take one look at me and they'll say, you do what, right? They don't understand. They don't put it together. And then even at that point, even when they do put it together, they're kind of like, is this girl good? Right? That's the automatic.
Yes, she is.
Oh, thank you. That's the automatic first, you know, like, is this girl really good? And so I think I've had a lot of experiences like that. That's been kind of, like I said, almost like a connector, and want to talk about human rights for a second too, but almost like a connector between worlds, different worlds. I always try to learn culturally about different worlds, and I have friends from all over the place, all different cultures. So for me, this was a funny situation where I was kind of getting into the marketing side of thing, and I was when I first started my agency, I was getting into the boardrooms and big, you know, in front of big decision makers. And in my head, I'm like, I hope to God they don't watch that fucking video, right? Like, that's what I'm thinking in my head. Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, but right. So I had this, I consulted with the Boston Sangerfest men's chorus. There's about 72 men in there. All of them are brilliant, really, really fascinating guys. And so after I presented my presentation on marketing and SEO and all this stuff, right? One of them pulls me aside and he goes, Jass. And I said, yes. And he goes, I saw your video on YouTube. Like, shit.
Whoops.
Right? Yeah. So he goes, it was good fucking stuff, right? So,
Right.
you know, it's like, again, music appreciates music. And actually, too, when I worked for the Massachusetts Association for Mental Health, one of the CEOs there, you know, she said the same thing to me, and she's so smart and impressive, and I didn't want her to watch it too, and she was like, wow, like, your music is really good. A couple bad words in there, but good, right? So I think that's what's beautiful about music, is that it transpires. So just diving into the human rights side of things for a second. The human rights, I feel like, you know, it's so important that we advocate for others. I think myself being in a place of privilege in a certain regards, you know, sometimes people will listen to me more than they'll listen to other people, and that's just kind of what it is. That's not painting it, you know, sugarcoating it or anything. So my family is very diverse. My cousins are Black. My other cousin comes from Guatemala. So, you know, we have a lot of, my aunts were gay. We have a lot of diversity within our own family. So from a very young age, I've always felt the need to defend them. And that's kind of where my human rights activism started, was feeling the need to defend them. And then as I grew, interacting with friends who were going through other socioeconomical issues or things because culturally where they came from. And so, yeah, that's pretty much, I advocate in my day to day. You know, I'm always trying to, even with the clients I'm working with, sometimes it's a weird, awkward situation because I'll kind of check them a little. I'll say, hey, you know, we're doing a lot of this, but how come we're not doing this? Or how come? So I do a lot of that and put myself in weird, unsettling situations. But I think it's important that we have these conversations.
Yep. I mean, you don't see color, gay, lesbian, anything. Black, white, doesn't matter what part of the country you're from, what kind of music you have.
Yep.
I mean, you embrace it all.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, right now I'm learning Urdu from some of my Pakistan freelancers out in Pakistan.
I don't even know what that is. That must be the language.
Yeah. So it's funny, right? They've been teaching me it. And I went to the bank, and I know this lady, she's really cool. And she was saying something, and I said, you know, I've been learning Urdu. She said, oh, really? I said, yeah. So I said something to her, and she goes, wow, you know more than my kids do right now. That's sad, right? So I love languages. I love learning. And I think we all need to be more universal in our thought and approach on stuff, because it will get us a lot further in life.
Yeah, and be more open to others. I mean, no,
For sure.
People are so quick to judge others. They don't know what the hell is going on behind closed doors.
Nothing.
You know, if there's mental health issues.
That's important too. And mental health is a huge part of the music community. I'm glad you brought that up. You know, I consider myself a mental health advocate as well. And, you know, mental health, I mean, I feel like musicians have a disposition already, if you want to call it that, but basically where they come into this earth being wired a certain way, and because they're wired that way, the brain actually in the same center. I wish I had my person from the Massachusetts Association for Mental Health, because they come in here and say, Jass, you know, like, but my way of saying this is you have that part in the brain where it's very emotive, and it's always, you're running everything through that part. And so that gives you, you know, your creativity. And so what happens is when you're very creative, that's stimulated more. And so it's connected to your emotional side, which again can impact your mental health. So I feel like it's really important that us as creators always put mental health on the table and talk about it.
Must be really hard. So some of these musicians will go from being nothing, being a beginning musician,
Yep.
go to the top of the world. They can't even
yeah.
go to the bathroom without people asking for their autographs. And then, so they go from the top of the world, now they drop and they're nothing again. That must be terrible on the brain.
Oh my gosh, that's really hard. And the thing is, the idea of you getting up on stage and actually, you know, performing in front of a bunch of people and having that adrenaline rush. That's a drug, right? It's a drug, and it's a great drug. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing feeling and an experience, and knowing that all these people are listening and they're following you and etc. But like you said, when that goes away, what's left at your core, right? Does the music define you? Does your career define you? Or is there something intrinsically that is going to define you and make you, you know, legendary just for being a person, not just being a musician or an artist, you know?
Yeah, it's a great point. Yeah, I mean, this has been phenomenal. I mean, just in this 45 minutes, I have learned a lot.
Thank you.
It's
Likewise.
been awesome having you in. So all our listeners and viewers, make sure you go check out Jass Bianchi and follow her. Check out her videos. You might have to censor them if your little kids are around. But yeah, this has been awesome. And we like to thank everyone comes in here as an acquaintance and leaves as a friend. So I want to thank you, Jass Bianchi, for being our friend.
Thank you so much for having me on the show again.
We're trying our best. Thanks. And before we go, I want to thank Dane, Kayla, and Maeve of WinCam, because they make all of this happen to come to you. Thank you.